What is going on, Basketball Brains community? Coming to you with another exciting podcast, episode 11 of the Basketball Brains series. We're going to look at the East versus the West, just the NBA as a whole. We're going to break down everything going on this season. Just going to get a good, broad feel about what the season's looking like, what the play-in picture's looking like, who's going to be there, who's not going to be there, making some predictions, all that and more on this episode of the Basketball Brains podcast. So, we are going to start out west. Everything's a little bit more clear out west than it is out east. So starting out west, two best teams in the West, the Golden State Warriors, the Phoenix Suns, both teams boasting 21-4 records. It's been a surprise, to say the least, because of how good the teams have been. Honestly, I don't know many people outside of fans of those teams that really believe they would be where they are. Most people didn't believe the Phoenix Suns would bounce back the way they have. The Golden State Warriors are looking like how they did in their dynasty years, and it's incredible to watch. Golden State Warriors are fourth in offensive rating, first in defensive rating. The Phoenix Suns, on the other end, eighth in offensive rating, second in defensive rating. Golden State 8-2 in their last 10 games. Phoenix 9-1. Both of these teams have played each other, split both games. Home record: Golden State has a home record of 14-2, an away record of 7-2. The division 5-1. The conference 12-3. The Phoenix Suns, looking at them, their home record is 12-2. The away record 9-2. Their division record is 3-2, and their conference record 14-4. Both teams are phenomenal on offense. Golden State averaging about 113 a game, holding their opponents to about 100 a game. Phoenix averaging 111 a game and holding their opponents to 104. It's incredible to watch. The Golden State Warriors, again, looking like their dynasty years. Steph Curry playing at an MVP level. They haven't had Clay back yet. Jordan Poole, in my opinion, probably the most improved player this year. Andrew Wiggins playing crucial for Golden State's success. A very good, rangy defender. Plays really well offense. Shooting the ball well. Very athletic. Gets to the basket. Converts a lot of buckets. Draymond Green being the vocal leader that he is. Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Kevon Looney stepping in, rebounding the ball really well. Got a very deep bench. Coach Kerr doing a great job with them. And in Phoenix, Chris Paul, an MVP candidate in some mock situations, averaging a double-double. Devin Booker averaging 20. Maybe a little bit lower than what he normally scores, but he's playing great for the Suns. Mikal Bridges playing crucial for them. We got DeAndre Ayton putting up close to a double-double. The Phoenix Suns as well have an incredibly deep bench, and their coach Monty Williams, in my opinion, maybe the coach of the year, for the simple fact that no one saw the Suns bouncing back and being as good as they are. So, again, in my opinion, Monty Williams, coach of the year. He's coaching these guys up, getting them to where they were last year, where a lot of people thought it was a fluke. And, yeah, the Suns and the Warriors, teams to be out west. Moving past the Golden State Warriors and the Phoenix Suns, in the third spot in the West, we have the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz are an incredibly competitive team. They fly under the radar because they don't have the star power of Golden State's or the excitement of Phoenix watching Devin Booker and Ayton and Chris Paul play. They fly under the radar. An incredibly talented team. They were second in the West last year. This year they're doing more of the same, playing good basketball out there. Donovan Mitchell averaging 25 points for them, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Bojan Bogdanovic averaging 17 for them. Rudy Gobert with a double-double for them. Jordan Clarkson with about 15 points off the bench for them. The Utah Jazz are extremely underrated. They have a good, solid bench unit. They are holding the first best offense in the league, first in offensive ratings per 100 possessions, fifth defensive ratings in the league per 100 possessions, and throughout their first 23 games, they are 18-7, not accounting for the game tonight as I am recording this on a Saturday. But the Utah Jazz are not a team that should be taken lightly out west. I think whoever runs into the Utah Jazz first round of this year's playoffs will likely lose in about 5 games. They're a really well-constructed team, play good, solid team defense. They play as a team collectively. There's not huge star power aside from Donovan Mitchell, who I wouldn't even really say is, in my opinion, he's not a superstar, not a superstar, like anything like that. He's not on the level of Devin Booker in Phoenix. He's not on the level of a Steph Curry, obviously. Devin Booker's not even on that level, but just to give you a little bit more comparison, I don't even think Donovan Mitchell's on Devin Booker's level. That being said, does not mean you can look over this Utah Jazz team. They will be a problem for whoever they match up with and a threat moving forward in the playoffs. Everyone sleeps on the Jazz because of the Warriors and because of the Suns. The Jazz are a really competitive team that can even give the Golden States and the Phoenix Suns of the NBA trouble. So the Utah Jazz will be a very interesting team to watch moving forward. Now, outside of the top 3 teams, the Warriors, the Suns, and the Jazz, the rest of the West is a little bit dicey. The Memphis Grizzlies come in at 4th, 15-11. The Clippers are 14-12. The Lakers are 14-13. The Mavericks are 12-13, and the Nuggets are 12-13 as well. And I noticed that outside of the Memphis Grizzlies, the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Mavs and the Nuggets are interchangeable. I could see it going either way, where one team moves above another, they might fall behind another. And even I could see the bottom of it, the Nuggets, moving above, say, the Lakers or the Clippers. I don't think there's too much consistency outside of the top 3. The Memphis Grizzlies have a really good team. They have a really good explosive offense. They are 7-3 in the last 10 games. The Clippers 5-5 in their last 10 games. The Lakers are 6-4 in their last 10. The Mavs 3-7. The Nuggets 3-7. And I think that honestly, the West has been kind of disappointing. As much power as we thought they would have, and as good as we thought these teams would be, some of them have been somewhat disappointing out west. I thought that it would be a dogfight in the West to keep those playoff spots. And I mean, granted, very early in the season, way too early to tell anything. However, the top 3 looks like it'll probably stay that way. Maybe there's some flexibility with the 3 spot with the Jazz. However, I don't see the Warriors or the Suns giving up that 1 or 2 spot. It's really flexible, really interchangeable, and it'll make for an interesting storyline. But again, I think the West has been disappointing so far. The Lakers have been disappointing. The Nuggets have been disappointing. The Mavericks are an interesting team to say the least. I think they have a really good offense. I think their defense is lackluster. I think the Nuggets, I don't think the Nuggets, I don't know what went on with that team. I thought they'd be a lot better. They only lost JaVale McGee. And they look like it's hard to even fathom why they were the first seed last year. Again, very interesting storyline. Not as strong as we thought they would be. And the next thing we're going to talk about is the play-in. The play-in is very close with the other teams. The Mavs and the Nuggets are technically play-in teams, but I'm looking at it from an older perspective with the playoffs outright. However, the Mavs and the Nuggets are play-in teams technically. The number 9 seed is the Minnesota Timberwolves at 11-15, and the Sacramento Kings at 11-15 as well. The Portland Trailblazers are right outside as well at 11-15. This is going to be this will probably be the tightest part of the West. Will probably be those bottom seeds, seeing how they interchange, as the Spurs are as well 9-15, just a few games back. And the rest of the West is 8-win teams as well. But staying with the play-in, and who I think is realistic for the play-in, the Timberwolves, a few wins away from taking over the 8th seed, maybe the 7th seed. The Kings, the same way. I think the Kings are really good. I think they play really fast and they play really good defense. However, the interesting part of this is the Portland Trailblazers with Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum. It'll be really interesting to see down the line if they make a move because of where they are. It's been a slow start to the season. It can definitely turn around, but they don't look like the Trailblazers that we've seen before. It looks like they're kind of falling apart. So, what I predict for this play-in scenario, I think the Kings will make it, and I think the Timberwolves will probably end up beating out the Blazers for that spot. If play continues how it is, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are still trying to figure it out. They're a young team in a sense, with Ant Edwards and some other guys on that team really young. The Kings playing really fast. I just don't think that the Blazers, how they're playing right now, will make the play-in. And especially a lot of the teams they play, I don't think they're a top 10 team in the West, how they match up. Looking at all the other teams, I don't see them beating a team head-to-head to get that last play-in spot. The Spurs, another interesting team. Very young core, and with Popovich, I love it. However, I'm not sure if they are good enough to beat these other teams as well. I think they can match up with some teams well. However, I think, scratch that. I don't think they match up with teams well. I think that they can be coached to wins. I think that you can't put anything past Greg Popovich as a coach. And looking down the list of the bottom 3 teams in the league, the Houston Rockets won 7 of their last 10 games. The Thunder, 8-17. And the Pelicans, 8-20. I don't see any of those teams making a push for the play-in. The Rockets, 7-3 in their last 10 games. Even Christian Wood said it was surprising. So, I mean, even he didn't expect the Rockets to play that well. I don't think the Rockets will make a push. I think they'll end up getting beat around a little bit more. The same with the Thunder. And with the Pelicans, with Zion coming back, it'll be really interesting because they do have Brandon Ingram. They will have Zion. I think that team's interesting to make a push for it, but I don't think they'll get in. Now the East. Unlike the West, the East is a lot more unclear as of right now. The Eastern Conference top 3 seeds consist of the Brooklyn Nets, who are 18-8. The Chicago Bulls 17-9. The Milwaukee Bucks 17-10 after a very rocky start to their 2021 campaign. The reason the East is a lot more interesting in the West, you don't have those teams that have so far separated themselves. The East has been kind of weird. Teams have been kind of flowing around in the standings for a while. In the beginning, we had the Wizards started off scorching hot. They were the number 1 seed. The Milwaukee Bucks were low down in the standings. The 76ers were on top. The Hornets were down low. The Heat was high. I mean, it's been everywhere. For the East, it's been going up and down and up and down. The Nets, looking at the top 3 teams in the East, and I've kind of separated it like that because these are the teams that so far have separated themselves the most. Not saying that I think this is what it's going to look like. I think it'll switch around a little bit. But the Brooklyn Nets, 18-8, with the 10th best offense according to their ratings, 8th best defense. We have the Chicago Bulls, the 12th best offense and the 6th best defense. I love what Chicago's doing, playing small ball a lot. They were really scrappy, really nitty team. They're close-knit. They're really scrappy. They're really gritty. They're really tough, and I like it. I don't know how the small ball will work when it comes to, like, the playoffs. Assuming the Chicago Bulls get in, I think the Chicago Bulls probably will. And you know, I didn't even speak about the Brooklyn Nets. It's crazy. I don't know how they're going to do in the playoffs either with James Harden. He's up and down. He's struggling. Kevin Durant needs a lot of help. I think that the Nets are playing better recently. I don't know how this is going to translate in the playoffs. I don't think the bench can score with consistency. I think that it's going to be interesting for Brooklyn. We all assume them to be a super team. James Harden isn't playing well. Kyrie Irving isn't playing. Joe Harris is hurt right now. They've been battling injuries a little bit. I don't know what to make of the Brooklyn Nets completely, to be honest. I think they're a very talented basketball team, but I don't think they're the super team that everyone thought. They don't have Kyrie again. I don't think Kyrie is going to play this season, or I'm not even sure if he's going to play for the Nets. There's talk of him getting traded and maybe possibly playing for someone else. James Harden, I'm not sure if he's going to come out of this slump. I had a lot of confidence the more and more games go on and watching him score 20. And again, it's really early. It's only a quarter of the way through the season. However, I don't really know what to make of it. Kevin Durant is having an MVP season like I thought he would. Just don't completely know what to make of that Brooklyn team. The Milwaukee Bucks, rounding out the top 3, had a very shaky start. Again, won 8 of their last 10 games. Really interesting because it was crazy to see such a talented team and a very competitive team that just came off of a championship falter that early in the season. However, it makes a lot of sense they're bouncing back and playing extremely well lately. The 4th through 10 seeds look like the Miami Heat, 15-11. Again, a team that early on in the season was a top 3 team. Now they're not far off. They're just a few wins outside of that top 3 season. Again, really early. I don't see the East still looking like this down the road. The Wizards, 15-11, started off scorching hot in the 1st seed, which is crazy because the Washington Wizards were not a team that people really accounted for. I mean, even myself, I thought they'd be a play-in team and be struggling for that spot. Again, it's really early in the season. They could end up there. But so far, props to them. They have a very intriguing group of kind of like the Cavs, how I think of the Cavs. They're a bunch of misfits that I wouldn't really think that would compete like they are. But it's working out really well for the Washington Wizards. And it's interesting to see. I wonder how that's going to go. I know Bradley Beal wants to stay there. I think that's one of the more interesting stories is how good the Wizards have been this season. The Cleveland Cavaliers in the 6th spot. again, the Cavs are a team that's really surprising. They have a bunch of guys that, if you look at the roster, you're like, I'm not sure if where they're gonna go. They got Ricky Rubio, a phenomenal veteran point guard. They have Darius Garland. They have Evan Mobley, Kevin Love. There are a bunch of guys that, when you look at the roster, you're not really sure how it translates. Jared Allen, I forgot to mention. Lauri Markkanen. A bunch of guys, and when you look, you're like, I'm not really sure where they'll go. But props to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are, as of right now, in the outright playoffs, according to the standings. If the NBA season was to end right now, I can't say this enough. I don't think that this is where it will stand at the end of the season. But they're doing great so far. In the 7th spot, we have the 76ers, 14-12. Started off really good. People were even saying they really didn't need Ben Simmons, but now as the season progresses, they struggled a little bit. Really interesting to see how the 76ers go about things. The Hornets are 15-13. They are that 8th seed right now. The Hornets have been incredible this season to watch. They're really fun to watch. When I say incredible, I don't mean that incredibleness doesn't translate to wins, but there's a lot of talent on that young Hornets team. I can see them fighting for a playoff spot, even giving a team a good fight in the playoffs. I really like the talent of LaMelo Ball mixed with Miles Bridges. I think that team is talented. I think that team can make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. Not sure how far they go, but I can see them being a tough first-round matchup. And the play-in competition is crazy in the East. Now, the play-in. Now, when I say the play-in, I'm thinking of it from an older perspective. Again, like I brought up in the beginning of the video, 1 through 8 I see as quote-unquote locks. Again, I don't think it's going to stay this way. It'll definitely flip around. But looking at the 9 seed out, the East is, in my opinion, I think it'll be even crazier than the West. Because there's only 2 teams in the East that I don't really think, that I really cannot see having a shot at the play-in. Again, the Magic and the Pistons are those 2 teams. The play-in's crazy. The Hawks are in the 9th spot right now with a 13-13 record. Trae Young, John Collins, Clint Capella, that big 3 that they got in Atlanta. It's really interesting to watch. Really fun and exciting to watch. So much offense for them. Not really a lot of defense. Which honestly is what kind of makes them fun to watch. The Celtics are in the 10th spot, 13-14. The Celtics have been up and down this season. It's been kind of shaky for the Boston Celtics. I know Jaylen Brown has been out with hamstring injuries. Josh Richardson, as of last night, I think he got hurt. The Celtics are in such an interesting position because I think they'll make the playoffs, play-in. However, they need Jaylen Brown. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Jaylen Brown is their best player. Jaylen Brown is their X-factor player for the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum's great and all, but Jason Tatum is not the heart and soul of the Boston Celtics. He's the main attraction for sure. He is. Definitely. He is the main attraction of the Boston Celtics, but he's not the heart and soul of the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown is their best player. He can score. He can defend. He can rebound. He gives you heart, energy, hustle, all that stuff that I think you get a lot more from him than from Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, obviously, he can rebound the ball well. He's a solid defender. However, if I'm taking either one of them, I'm going to take Jaylen Brown. And this team, without Jaylen Brown, has been faltering a little bit. 4-6 of their last 10 games. They need Jaylen Brown to contend for, if they get to the play-in, to make the playoffs, they will need Jaylen Brown. I can't see Jason Tatum doing it on his own. The next team, another team from the Atlantic Division, the Toronto Raptors, 12-14, a very young team, 5-5 in their last 10 games. Biggest story for the Raptors is 6'9" forward/guard Scotty Barnes, one of the biggest rookies that is in the league right now. Now they have a lot of other really good pieces. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Khem Birch is a good player for them. They're a really young team full of really valuable pieces. It's an interesting scenario to see how it'll all unravel when we get closer to the play-in, if they'll still be in contention, if they'll fizzle out. I like this team, though. With Nick Nurse as their coach, I think they are a really interesting team to watch. Led by Scotty Barnes. He's obviously not doing everything, but he leaves his fingerprints all over the game. Pascal Siakam, obviously a really good player. Fred VanVleet, a really good point guard, and he solidified that in the 2019 playoffs. The next team we got up, the New York Knicks, 12-14, a team that I apologized to, I believe, a little too early, saying that the New York Knicks are a really good team, and I still think they're a good team. I backed off earlier than I should have when I said that the New York Knicks defense, they're not really a defensive-minded team, even though they have Tibbs, which I love Coach Tibbs. I think he is one of the best defensive minds in basketball. But if you look at the New York Knicks, they are an offensive team. They really are. Julius Randle, an offensive player. D. Rose, an offensive player. Kemba Walker, who I believe they said he's not with a team, offensive player. Evan Fournier, offensive player. I mean, it's just RJ Barrett's a little bit of a two-way, but he's like one of the only players that play both ends. Obi Toppin is more of an offensive player. I mean, he's an offensive player. These guys are not defensive guys. Taj Gibson plays defense. Love Taj. Lots of heart. But there's way more offense than defense on a Tom Thibodeau team. And to be honest, Tibbs isn't an offensive mastermind. He can win you games, but that's off of his defense. He can draw up plays that'll get you buckets, but his primary calling card is the defensive side of the floor. The New York Knicks are not a defensive team. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make the play-in. I think they are good enough, though, to make the play-in. However, again, don't be surprised if they don't. The Indiana Pacers round out the last bit in the 13th spot right now, 12-16. They have a really, really interesting team with Chris Duarte playing really well early on. I don't see the Pacers making the play-in. Malcolm Brogdon, Domantas Sabonis, really good. Karis LeVert, Miles Turner. This team isn't a play-in team, honestly. Torrey Craig is really good. I forgot about Torrey Craig. But Torrey Craig as well. But outside of those guys, there's a bunch of guys that they're solid NBA players, but they're not guys that off the bench are going to create a lot for you. So, again, won't be surprised. You know what? I'm just going to say the Indiana Pacers aren't going to make the play-in. They're not. Being realistic, they're not going to. And rounding out the rest of the East, the Orlando Magic at 5-22 and the Detroit Pistons at 4-21. Those two teams are not going to make a push for the play-in. They're looking forward to the lottery. They're getting beat up a lot on this year. Cade Cunningham's really fun to watch with the Pistons. Cole Anthony is exciting. He is really exciting with the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic have a really interesting young team, but they're not pushing for the play-in at all. Their season is just a learning experience for these young guys. The same with the Pistons, learning experience for these young guys, and on to the lottery, on to the next season. And that's it. That's all I got. That has been episode 11 of the Basketball Brains podcast. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for listening. The love and support is appreciated. I hope y'all have a great day and the rest of your weekend. And I hope y'all go on to have a great week. Until next time, this has been the Basketball Brains podcast. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Basketball Brains podcast. Episodes come out on Sundays. Link will be in the description below to our Spotify. Give it a follow to keep up with all the latest podcasts we are dropping out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Follow us on Instagram at the Basketball Brains podcast. TBB.